At the age of 34, Trevor Creswell resigned as an advertising executive to join the probation service. After a year's training, he started as a probation officer in Fulchester, at barely one-third his previous income, a fact of life to which his wife found it hard to adjust. Within 8 months, one of his clients, a prison aftercare case called Lillian White, pleaded guilty to handling stolen property to the value of £870. Lillian duly implicated Creswell, and today he faces trial by jury in Fulchester Crown Court, charged with assisting in the disposal of stolen goods for the benefit of another person. Mr. Lotterby appears for the prosecution, Mr. O'Connor for the defence, Mr. Justice Campbell presides.
Handling. Correct, Inspector?
That's right.
Yes. So, Inspector, if I may just summarize this section of your evidence, you received a tip-off from an anonymous informant that these 5 watches were hidden in the cesspit behind Miss White's home. You obtained a search warrant and, together with 2 constables, visited the premises where you found Miss White in the company of the accused.
Yes, just the 2 of them.
You
yes.
dredged the cesspit and duly found the watches sealed in a plastic bag. You then dug over the rest of the backyard and unearthed this main haul of jewellery valued at £870, which you found in the weed patch in the furthest corner.
That's it, yes.
Good. And how did Miss White respond to these discoveries?
She became abusive, sir.
Towards you?
For a change, no. Her anger was concentrated on Mr. Creswell.
On the accused?
Yeah, she straight up accused him of being part of it all.
Of?
The handling of stolen goods.
Yes.
She also reckoned that he'd shopped her on it. That's informed on her.
She said he had helped her to hide the stuff and had then informed you of its concealment.
Only informed us of the 5 watches, mind, not the main haul of the jewellery.
I see. How did Mr. Creswell react to all this?
Well, when we first arrived, sir, he was in rather an excited state. They both were.
Alarmed at seeing you?
No, more as if they'd been rowing. They were both flushed and that. Then when he saw it was me, Mr. Creswell said, the Gestapo, that's all we needed.
The Gestapo? What else?
Nothing, sir. I showed the warrant to Miss White, and after that he closed up tight. He asked if he could telephone his wife. Apart from that, he didn't say a word.
And his mood at that stage?
His mood, sir?
Did he seem surprised, anxious?
Well, he certainly wasn't laughing, sir. Pretty grim, you could say.
Yes. And how about later, when Miss White named him as accessory to the handling?
He said, "Lily, for God's sake." Then he turned to me and said, "Look, this is..." That was all.
Oh?
Well, the way she was raging on at him, it was no wonder.
Nothing else?
Not until he came down to the station a few days later when he made a statement denying all knowledge of the stolen property.
Thank you, Inspector.
This informant, Inspector, you say telephoned anonymously?
Is she, sir?
A woman?
It sounded more like a woman's voice, yes.
Miss White, you say, later accused Mr. Creswell of being the informant.
Yes, sir?
And yet you say it was definitely a woman.
Well, I said it sounded like a woman's voice. More than that, I can't say.
And unfamiliar to you. Yes?
Sir?
You didn't recognize the voice?
No, it was a complete stranger.
There's no chance, perhaps, of it being Miss White, perhaps?
No, none. I think I'd know her voice all right.
Well, you know her that well, do you?
Oh, I do.
Yes, she has somewhat of a reputation with the Fulchester CID, I believe.
She has.
A reputation as a persistent offender. Prostitution, petty larceny, conspiracy,
Emmanuel,
handling stolen...
Is this relevant here?
I don't see why not.
Inspector, is it not true that you and your colleagues have been engaged in somewhat of a vendetta with the accused?
Vendetta, sir?
Yes, he referred to you as the Gestapo.
Well, we do get called worse
Did he
than
not
they.
previously voice complaints to your superior about one of your fellow CID officers.
Oh, that was hardly a vendetta.
Had there been complaints, Inspector?
Yes, my lord.
Complaints about what?
Accusing us of harassment, sir.
Malicious persecution was, I think, the phrase, my lord.
Of who? The accused himself?
No, sir. Principally of Miss White.
As Miss White's probation officer, my lord, it was only reasonable he should be concerned for her rights.
What sort of harassment?
Well, it was claimed that the CID were forever pulling her in for questioning, making her attend identity parades, visiting her home at all hours on the slightest pretext.
No, sir, look.
And also by warning off her employers every time she managed to get a job.
Was this true?
No, it was grossly exaggerated, sir. Certainly we checked her over a couple of times. And also these lads always got around the place, but as for malicious persecution...
What about tipping off her employers as to her prison record?
No, certainly not.
Mr. Creswell specified that in his complaint.
Yes, well, Mr. Creswell would. He'd believe anything like that.
Lillian White had lied to him, is that it? She'd exaggerated the situation.
Well, of course she had. It was typical.
I'm sorry, Inspector. You are saying it is typical of Lily White to lie if it suits her?
Well, at times.
Nevertheless, when it suits you, you believe her.
I don't see what this has got to do.
Look, when she accuses you, it's a lie. But when she accuses Mr. Creswell, a man who's made himself a bit of a nuisance to the CID, then it's the truth. Something to be pursued and built up into a prosecution.
No, sir.
My lord.
That will do, Mr. O'Connor.
Lord. No, I've no further questions of this witness.
Thank you, Inspector. You may stand down.
My lord.
My next witness is Miss White.
Lillian White, please.
Church of Rome. I swear by Almighty God to tell the court the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me.
You are Lillian White of no fixed address.
Yes?
You are currently detained in Holloway Prison, serving 3 years imprisonment for handling stolen property.
For my sins?
And that property was found in your garden, 5 watches in the cesspit, and the jewellery buried in the backyard. How did they get there?
Well, it was funny, really. He was scared by the whole thing.
Who?
Well, him. Up there where he ought to be.
What did he have to do with it?
Well, he buried the bleeding stuff. Jewellery in the ground, watches in the sewer. That was his idea. I didn't go much on it myself, but he says it's okay. So
You say he actually did the burying?
Yes, I had him sweating at that.
Can you remember the date when this happened?
Well, I couldn't when old over there asked me about it, but I've been thinking about it. It was a Monday, May 13th. I'm sure of that now.
Monday, May the 13th. I see. Thank you, Miss White. Now, how did the accused act during this incident?
Scared. Scared rotten by the old game.
And yet he went through with it.
Well, for me, yes. He'd done anything for me, wouldn't he? Anything. He'd gone stupid over me, he had.
Ah, yes, gone stupid. Would you please explain that, Miss White?
Ah, it sounds a bit daft and all, doesn't it? I mean, probation officer knocking off one of his ladies, but that's how it got. Of course, it didn't start out like that. It was all very correct at the start. I was his first aftercare case. See, straight out of Stern. Well, he was as nervous of me as a nun in a knocking shop, so naturally I went easy on him, you know, nursed him along like. You've got to, you'd break their hearts out.
Stick to the point, witness.
Well, sir, that is the point. I mean, maybe he misunderstood me over it. See, for long, he's looking in on me all hours of the day and night. Always round, always going on about how the law was victimising me and that, how I wasn't getting the chance I deserved, how it was a social crime the way I was treated over my housing and finding work and that, and, well, I'll not deny I welcomed it. I mean, there's few enough will care, really care like that. Then, one evening, I reckon he's had a few jars, because he starts on about his missus, saying how she was always bitching him over the work and the money and all, and, well, next thing, we're like, you were only consoling him, like, you know, that's all.
Be silent. Continue.
Well, we end up in, what's it called? Flagranti.
I think not.
Oh. Well, anyway, we was pushing it together, and, well, that done it. I mean, after that, there was no holding him. You won't believe it, not seeing him sit there all collected like, but sometimes he'd just lie there in my arms and cry, sobbing like a child.
I'm sure this is all highly diverting, but is it relevant to the alleged concealment of stolen property?
Well, I'm just coming to that, ain't I?
Pray do.
Well, comes the day when this old boy comes round with a lot of art gear. That little lot there. Just to hold it for him, he says, till he eats off. Well, he's hardly away and me looking for somewhere to stick it when in comes there Trev. Him. What's this lot then, he says.
You showed him the stolen property?
Oh, of course not. I stuffed it in my handbag, hadn't I? But he saw the tail of them pearls hanging out split in the side. Okay?
Did he not tell you to go to the police?
Not him, your lordship. That's probation brigade. He's not a copper. There's sides in this game, you know.
Really?
Well, anyway, we has this steaming great bust-up over it. And in the end, he says, if I'm going to hang on to him, I've got to hide him proper. Well, the next thing I know, he's out there with a shovel digging like a black in the nettles. OK, then.
Thank you, Miss White.
Miss White, the inspector told us earlier how you accused Mr. Creswell of betraying you, of informing the police of these hidden articles.
That's right.
And yet just now you told us that you and he were lovers and that it was he who had hidden these articles.
Well, you see, even afterwards, he kept on and on at me to get shot of him. Then, a couple of weeks later, Jimmy Blake, well, he's like a special friend of mine. Jimmy gets himself nicked for thieving. Trev, he's asked to do a social report on him. Well, as your lordship will know, it's not Bake's decide on sentence.
No.
Well, no, it's what goes in them reports decides it. I mean, it should have been a supervision order for young Jimmy. Of course it should. Because he's, like, jealous of Jimmy, he sticks him down for custodial. 6 months detention centre he got. Of course, I'm very disappointed in that. We have another steaming great bust-up, Trev and me, which was very nasty, and next thing, Laura's round with a search warrant and straight down the sewer.
From which you concluded that it was the accused who had informed.
Well, it had to be, didn't it? I mean, that's the way he is, impulsive, right up and down. And that's no good. Not in a probation officer. Oh, dear, no.
Do you deny you took to telephoning him 2 or 3 times a day, both at work and at his home?
So? I said I liked how it was between us.
Oh, yes, you liked it very well. In fact, it was you who made all the running, pushing it, arousing his sympathies with his tales of police persecution, involving him in your fight with the housing authorities, and in your supposed inability to hold a job.
That's how it was, mister. No messing.
The more you involved Mr. Creswell, the more hooked you became on the idea that he fancied you.
Idea? It was no idea.
No? Wasn't it a sheer fantasy, a bizarre dream which you cultivated over the months to the point where you genuinely began to believe it yourself?
Except it weren't just me. There was others saw him mooning round me all the time.
Others? Really? And are we to hear from these others? From some of these lads, perhaps, whom we've heard were so often found to be frequenting your home?
My lord, a witness will be called who it is anticipated will verify Miss White's statement.
I'm sure we all await his evidence with interest.
Yeah, not as you'll believe him any more than me.
No? Why not?
Well, he's a wrong'un, isn't he? Like me, an outsider. Likes of us can't help to beat you lot, not the system.
No?
No, never. It's a lost cause. But the fact is, he's bent. He broke the law and he deserves to pay for it.
He deserves to pay. That's what matters to you, Lil, isn't it? That he should pay. The only question is, for what?
Come again?
You built up your fantasy, didn't you? You really believed it. Told all your young lads that's how it was. You and Mr. Creswell pushed it together, as you said. And then things went sour on you, right?
Sour?
Yes, the social inquiry report you told us about earlier. The report on young Jimmy Blake.
Oh, that, yes.
Yes, your supposed lover defied you on this, didn't he? He went against your wishes, and in so doing, he forced you to face your fantasy.
My what?
You've told us you had a row over the Blake incident.
Yes.
Yes, several rows even.
Right.
In fact, you were in the midst of a row when the police arrived with the warrant.
Yes, mister, so what?
It was you who telephoned the police, wasn't it, Lil? You who told them about the hidden watches.
Me? You heard a twist? Shot myself?
Yes, out of spite.
Oh, no.
You'd had the major row. You'd been forced to acknowledge this man's true feelings for you. And you felt utterly betrayed.
No.
And it was in this mood that you telephoned the police.
You're barmy.
You told them about the hidden watches in the cesspit, but you didn't mention the rest of the main haul. Just the £20 worth of watches. Correct, Miss White?
Look, who's going to prison for it? Not him. First offence. Suspended sentence is all I'll get. But me? 3 bleeding years I got, then I was lucky. Could have been 5. 3 years just 'cause I'm jealous? Oh, come off it.
Jealousy, spite. These words are inadequate to describe the vacuum of pain and despair which followed your fantasy. Disillusionment can provoke extreme responses in people
Are we
of
now
all...
to be treated to a lecture on emotions?
No, sir, he's right. I was disillusioned. But only when I found out it was him had shot me to the law. Only then.
Well, we shall see, Lil. We shall see. Oh, one final point, Miss White. Mr. Creswell entered a couple of summary reports in your case file. Would you mind if he presented these in evidence? Well, you've claimed intimate relations. Since there's a chance these reports might shed some light on what you're...
yes, sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Miss White.
Nevertheless, my lord, the prosecution may find objection.
Well, perhaps in that case, Miss White might be allowed to remain in court during the rest of the evidence, so she can see that her interests are being protected.
Mr. Connor, that seems rather an unusual course. Mr. Lotterby, do you have any objections?
No, my lord.
Very well, then. But see that she is seated down here in front, well away from her young admirers.
Call Emmanuel Nyopa.
Emmanuel Nyopa, please.
And you are currently registered as a resident at the White Oak Common Hostel.
Yeah,
And
sir.
You are acquainted with the accused, this man here?
Mr. Creswell,
Where did you meet him?
at Lil's place. Lil.
Miss White, quite so. And on the evening of Monday, the 13th of May, where were you?
Round her drum.
Round at Miss White's home.
Yeah.
All evening? What time did you arrive?
About, I don't know, 9-ish.
About 9 in the evening.
Yeah.
And whom did you see there?
No one. Not till Lil coming from the back.
Was she alone?
Yeah.
And how did she react to seeing you?
She gave me a kiss, didn't she?
Silence. Any more of that sniggering and I shall clear the public gallery. Now, is that understood?
She kissed you, and then?
She gave me a drink, wine, and took a couple of beers out the back.
What did you do then?
Settled down, didn't I?
You settled down?
Yeah.
You didn't look to see where Miss White had gone?
Oh, yeah, I took a deco.
And what did you see?
Him, Mr. Creswell, digging like down in Nettles.
Yes?
Then I saw him stuff a package down the bottom of this hole before he started filling her in like.
Are you certain it was Mr. Creswell?
Yeah. Not at first, mind. Too dark. Only when he come in.
So you saw a man digging a hole in the backyard shortly after 9 o'clock in the evening of May the 13th last. You saw him place a package in the hole, and then when he came in, you recognized him as this man here. Is that it?
That's right.
Good. Thank you. Now then, Mr. Nyopa, had you ever seen Mr. Creswell at Miss White's before that date?
Yeah, regular.
Could you describe their relationship for us?
They're what?
How did they behave together?
Always after it, wasn't he? Always looking for a bit of the other.
A bit of
A bit of tail.
tail.
Slang term, my lord, for intercourse.
You actually saw intercourse take place?
Whoa.
Not like actual, you know.
What did you see?
Forever groping her, wasn't he? Touching her up and that.
You are telling this court that you often saw the accused caressing the witness over there.
That's right.
I see.
Thank you, Mr. Nyopa. Just stay there, please.
Emmanuel, may we take it that you're a frequent visitor to Lil's place?
That's right.
You'd say that you were one of her more special friends.
We get on.
Well, as you say, she greets you with a glass of wine and a kiss.
So?
Where'd you first meet the lady?
Dunno.
Well, maybe I can refresh your memory. Wasn't it near here in the magistrate's court next door?
Maybe.
Didn't she come up to you in the corridors outside the courts just after you'd appeared before the magistrates on a charge of thieving?
My lord, I protest.
Why, it's where Miss White picks up most of her young friends, her specials.
Mr. O'Connor, you know better than to make such allegations. However, your question is permissible, so go on.
Well, Emmanuel?
Well, it may have been there. But so what?
You have, in fact, 2 previous convictions, correct?
That's right.
Yes, the first occasion earned you a 2-year supervision order. Yes? Yes. How'd you get on with your probation officer?
All right.
All right. Oh, come on now, tell us the truth.
What?
Well, he breached you, didn't he? Within 6 months, he had you back before the beaks for failing to comply with the order. Oh, what have you been up to? Been lazy, maybe? Failing to hold down a regular job? Or perhaps you were not calling in on him regularly enough.
My lord, may we know where this is leading us?
Quite simply, my lord, this witness has a record of conflict with the service. A record which I submit is sufficiently strong to have prejudiced him against probation officers such as Mr. Creswell.
There's a lot of difference, my lord, between prejudice and perjury.
To some may be, to others the line may be less clear.
Gentlemen, that will do. Thank you.
Now, earlier, Miss White told us that she did not expect the jury to believe your evidence because you, like her, were a wrong 'un, an outsider. What have you got to say to that, Emmanuel?
Dunno. Yeah, well, if Lil says so.
Exactly. If Lil says so. Just what Lil said for you to come into the witness box today and tell this court a pack of lies about this unfortunate man here.
Look, mister, I come here because it's true. You're the same as the fuzz, ain't you? Trying to shut me up. Well, I'm telling you, that's how it was.
The fuzz. Now, members of the jury, you may well know that in certain circles, the fuzz is an epithet meaning the police.
That's right, the police. When I went to the cop shop and tell him, they tried to muzzle me, tried to send me off, tell me I was a troublemaker. Well, I ain't. And now I've told you.
The case of the Queen against Creswell will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. When Lillian White was caught in possession of £870 worth of stolen jewellery and watches, she promptly named her probation officer, Trevor Creswell, as a party to the crime. Creswell was duly charged, and at yesterday's hearing, Lillian told the court how she and the probation officer had become lovers, and that he had later helped her bury the stolen property in her backyard. This evidence was supported by a young friend of hers, Emmanuel Nyopa. Currently giving evidence is the accused. Mr. Lotterby appears for the prosecution, Mr. O'Connor for the defence, Mr. Justice Campbell presides.
1972, you resigned as an advertising executive and took the Home Office training course in London.
That's right.
This, along with the degree you already held in sociology, qualified you to apply for the post of probation officer here in Fulchester.
Yes.
What was your yearly income in advertising?
Around 6,000 a year.
Your current salary?
Just above 2,000.
A heavy drop in income, and yet one which you were prepared to accept.
Of course.
Why, Mr. Creswell?
Aha. Basically, I suppose I was disillusioned with the advertising scene, the whole materialist nonsense. I'd always been interested in social work, been a prison visitor and so on. I simply felt the need to do something more purposeful.
Something where you could perhaps help to contribute towards...
Well, a better society, yes. A sense of achievement, I suppose. The money side had become irrelevant.
Your family, your wife accepted this viewpoint, did she?
Well, she knew how restless I was. I think if she resented anything, it was the move from the south.
Well, nevertheless, this upheaval, it has not disrupted your marriage at all.
No, I certainly hope not.
Now, Miss White's suggestion of marital conflict, it's quite unfounded, is it?
Totally. In fact, that whole spiel of hers about our being lovers, downright lies. But then I'm afraid that's only to be expected from someone who has a personality disorder such as Lily has. You see, she has this pathological compulsion to fantasize
surely
about...
if the defense wished to make such assertions, they should call an expert medical witness.
Which it is our intention to do, my lord.
Very well. Now, Mr. Creswell, will you please limit your evidence to the facts?
I'll try, sir.
Do.
So it is untrue that you had intimate relations with Miss White?
Oh, completely untrue. I admit I may have been a shade more attentive than is normal in prison aftercare cases, but this was because I knew the rest of the department regarded her as a chronic case, incurable, if you like, and I was keen to disprove this.
And you felt that, that you could get through to her?
Achieve a state of transference, yes, and clearly the only way to do this was to win her confidence and to show her that I genuinely cared about her rehabilitation.
And this involved giving her rather more attention than is normal?
Excessively so, yes. I can see now that I rather overdid it.
How, Mr. Creswell?
Well, because she misinterpreted my interest.
Assumed you were attracted to her and became infatuated with you?
Yes, but as I say, she has this impulse to fantasize about...
My lord, I'd like to refer once again to Mr. Creswell's summary report on Lily White, Exhibit 3. Now, Mr. Creswell, you talk of a breakthrough of increasing empathy, and you say, the client at last confiding the nature of her childhood trauma.
Yes, Mr. O'Connor, no matter what Miss White said, I think we should respect that confidence.
Really?
Oh, go ahead, go on.
Thank you, Miss White. The persistent betrayal and rejection by her father until puberty, when he at last acknowledged her by commencing an incestuous relationship. But even this was later subject to betrayal when the man deserted his family altogether, going off with a close friend of Lily's.
My lord, could I ask my friend to confine himself to the accused's attitude to the witness?
Well, Mr. O'Connor?
My lord, surely it is clear enough. Mr. Creswell encountered initial hostility, but he managed to overcome this. But in so doing, he unleashed emotions which resulted in the witness's infatuation.
Well, I think we can have done with these documents now. Thank you.
Oh. Now, this infatuation, how did it affect your relationship with Miss White?
The first trouble came over the SCR, the Social Inquiry Report on Jimmy Blake.
When you refused to recommend him for a supervision order?
Exactly, yes. Lily took that very badly. See, she had a sort of mother-son thing going with Jimmy, and presumably I'd come to represent something of a father figure in her mind. Anyway, she felt very betrayed about it all, very distressed. And then bang on top of it came the police with their warrant and so on. You see, quite honestly, I think she just got wildly mixed up. She felt
betrayed over Jimmy, hurt and vulnerable, and she felt guilty over the stolen property because she'd reverted to crime and hence failed me. And I think she just felt very defensive about it all. The whole thing just seemed to build up into this moment of insane spite.
Thank you. What about this other witness, Emmanuel Nyopa? What about his evidence?
Well, as you said, man's another of her lads. He has this long record of trouble with the probation service. Anything Lily told him to say about me, he'd say it.
Thank you, Mr. Creswell.
Mr. Creswell, you say you felt disillusioned with the advertising world.
Once you've sensed the artificiality of that kind of life.
The artificiality, yes, I can imagine. How about the life of a probation officer? Has that come up to your expectations?
Of course, it's early days yet.
Yes, and now finding yourself in this situation, not very pleasant.
No, not at all.
But even before this case blew up, had you not begun to experience doubts?
No, why should I?
Well, I was just thinking of your having to cope with the hostility of hardened clients. Quite a shock after the urbanity of the advertising world.
Well, there's no shortage of hostility in the advertising world, believe you me.
I suppose not. And your new colleagues in the service?
I'm sorry, what about them?
No hostility there?
Oh, no, none at all.
But you found yourself isolated, didn't you?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Wasn't that why you were so desperate to crack the Lillian White case, to show that you could succeed where they had failed?
Oh, I suppose there was an element of challenge about it,
Exactly,
yes.
challenge the new boy anxious to prove himself, so anxious, in fact, that he wildly overstepped the limits.
No, not wildly.
Well, we shall see. Now, these so-called summary reports, which we've been led to believe reflect your attitude towards the client. Well, you know, frankly, for me, if they reflect anything at all, it is the breathtaking naivety with which you approached the Lillian White case.
Oh. Well, no doubt, had you trained in sociology, you might find it a little easier to comprehend the terms, but...
Yes, perhaps I would. Empathy, trauma, transference, the whole textbook tone of the thing. Still, I suppose we could hardly expect you to spell out your more drastic steps in pursuit of transference, such steps as sleeping with a lady.
I've told you already.
Yes, yes, you have.
To...
What was it you called it? I'm sure you had a phrase for it. Impulsive fantasizing. That was it, wasn't it? You say that she imagined you slept with her, just as later she got wildly mixed up, betrayed, hurt, vulnerable, guilty, defensive, suffered this escalation into insane spite. It won't do you any good, you know, hiding behind all this sociological jargon. I'm sure the jury would be far more impressed by a little plain speaking.
Well, no doubt.
Yes. Now, you've heard Miss White earlier when she spoke of the probation brigade taking sides.
Yes.
Siding with the clients against the police.
Mm-hmm.
You admit to fostering this sort of attitude?
I was anxious to break down the them and us concept she'd developed.
You were on her side.
Well, yes.
So you accepted all her claims of police brutality, police persecution, even so far as complaining to the chief superintendent, I believe.
They were hounding her.
And the housing authorities, you petitioned them to give her better accommodation.
Well, the place she was living in was appalling, a condemned property. They had no right to...
Mr. Creswell, but you must admit that this shows you up as a man who would stop at nothing to win her over, even to the extent of starting an affair with her and then of condoning her return to crime by helping her bury the stolen property.
No, look, it's all too common for social workers to get callous about these persistent offenders. They write them off. They make a department joke of them. Oh, her, Lily White. Oh, best of luck, chum.
Of course, to a newcomer like yourself, this was an irresistible challenge.
No. Well, even if it was, not to the extent that you're making out.
Well, surely it's a small step from condoning her crimes to helping her commit them.
Look, this date that she and Manny have come up with, May the 13th.
Monday, May the 13th.
The evening I'm supposed to have buried the stuff. I don't think I even saw Lily that day.
Oh, you didn't see her that day?
No, so far as I can remember, I was at home that evening.
You were at home? Alone, no doubt?
No, I don't think so. My wife would have been there.
Would she? Well, unless Mrs. Creswell is prepared to come before us and swear quite definitely that you were with her that evening, you can hardly expect the jury to attach much credence to your claim.
My lord, if my client is sure of this, we shall, of course, take steps to get his wife to confirm it.
Are you sure, Mr. Creswell?
Yes, sir, so far as I can remember.
Well, then, we shall see. No further questions, my lord?
You wish to re-examine Mr. O'Connor?
Thank you, no, my lord.
Very well, then. You may return to the dock.
My lord, we are endeavouring to contact Mrs. Creswell. In the meantime, I should like to call the medical witness referred to earlier. I call Dr. Mansell, please.
Dr. Olga Mansell, please.
It could be Lillian White is subject to a condition termed pseudologia fantastica. In fact, I have recently prepared a report for one of your lordship's colleagues suggesting just that possibility.
Yes, that was for the judge who recently sentenced Miss White for handling this stolen property.
Correct.
But, Doctor, perhaps you could explain this this condition.
Pseudologia fantastica? Essentially, it means she is a pathological liar, that she has a compulsion to indulge in elaborate fantasies.
And may we hear your reasons for this conclusion?
Oh, hardly a definite conclusion, sir. I would need many more interviews with the subject before being so positive. A very interesting personality with a high IQ. However, on the basis of the limited time we did have together, I suspect she tends to resort to fantasy as an ego defense mechanism.
Just why should she do this?
She has failed in conventional terms. She feels society has rejected her. Apparently she had a childhood of exceptional deprivation, deprived of attention and affection, you understand, an orphan, institutionalized at an early age. One could say there was a strong undercurrent of self-hate, which she can only counter with this complex of fantasies.
And lies.
Or the lies are merely an extension of the fantasies, a wish to sustain them.
Thank you.
Doctor, in evidence, Miss White claimed that the accused, her probation officer, had become stupid over her, that they had become lovers.
Yes, that is a very interesting possibility. The probation officer, an obvious authority figure, being involved in a sexual fantasy.
And then she further claimed that he helped her to conceal these stolen valuables.
Yes, that could be a substantiation of the original fantasy, a wish for him to condone her actions.
And when later her fantasy world was challenged, what would you expect then?
Oh, an extreme pathological reaction, more lies, hatred, a sense of betrayal, all very traumatic, very sad.
Sufficient to provoke her to betray her supposed lover?
Oh, conceivably, yes.
Thank you, Doctor.
You've told us, in effect, Doctor, that this woman here, Lillian White, is mentally sick, psychotic.
She has a personality disorder.
I'm bound to tell you that her performance in the witness box seemed perfectly rational.
Good.
None of the traumatic extremes or pathological reactions we might have expected from listening to your evidence.
She put on a convincing show, did she?
Most.
Well, that's reasonable.
Ah.
You have to remember she believes what she's saying. She's bound to seem sincere.
You were at pains, Doctor, to emphasize the uncertainty of your conclusions.
I was. I am.
Refreshingly candid for a medical witness, if I may say so. Would you agree that Miss White is perceptive, able to assess the weaknesses in others?
If not in herself, yes, I would.
So her response to a novice probation officer like Mr. Creswell, you'll agree it could have been... well, she might, in fact...
If you're trying to suggest she might have conned him, yes, she might well have done so.
She might?
Just as she might well have conned me.
You?
Quite possibly. Oh, she's bright enough. 3 sessions was all I had with her. I doubt if 20 would be sufficient. Is that candid enough for you?
Yes. Thank you, Doctor.
But the fact is, I have been 15 years interviewing female offenders. I'm not a complete innocent at it, you know.
You wish to re-examine Mr. O'Connor?
No, my lord, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Dr. Mansell, for giving us your time.
I hope I've been of some help, sir.
Yes, indeed.
My lord, Since Mrs. Creswell is still not available, I'd like to call a character witness, Mr. Johns.
Eric Johns, please.
And you are the senior probation officer in Fulchester.
Since 1967.
You have 5 full-time probation officers under you, including Mr. Creswell.
Yes, with a caseload of close on 300 clients.
Of which Mr. Creswell handled how many?
He'd built up to about 30.
And was this normal?
It's more than I would have wished, but since we're chronically understaffed...
So Mr. Creswell was rather thrown in at the deep end?
He was.
How did he manage, Mr. Johns?
Quite promisingly, considering. Most conscientious.
Enthusiastic?
If anything, a shade too enthusiastic. That's not unusual, of course. With time and experience, they usually moderate their idealism, except that the establishment isn't really such a monster.
Yes. And, of course, Miss White was one of his clients.
She was.
Now, did you at any time discuss her case with the accused?
I made a point of doing so.
Really?
I knew she was a tricky customer. In fact, I warned him of that when he first took her on.
You warned him?
That she was a bit of a character. Wily.
Wily. I see.
And later, I kept a check on his summary notes.
As entered into the case file every 3 months.
That's right. After reading the second one, I warned him against getting too optimistic. I remember I picked on one thing as an example of her deviousness.
And what was that, Mr. Johns,
She'd
please?
spun him a yarn about her childhood. He'd interpreted it as a breakthrough, but I pointed out that it was probably a complete fiction.
The business about her father?
Yes, that was it.
When, in fact, she was an orphan.
Orphan? No. Her favourite claim is that she was brought up by an alcoholic stepmother in Norwich.
An alcoholic stepmother in Norwich? One wonders what her next fantasy will be. Mr. Johns, we've heard that Miss White got very angry with Mr. Creswell over the Blake boy, over the decision to recommend a custodial sentence.
I'm sure.
I'm sorry?
That she got angry.
Oh, yes. Had he discussed the Blake case with you?
Oh, yes. I told him that it was always best to recommend all Lily's young men for a spell in a structured environment.
Structured environment? You mean Boston?
I do say yes.
Why this recommendation?
To get these youngsters away from her influence.
You regard her as a bit of an old Fagin, is that it?
Oh, my lord, he's at it again.
That will do, Mr. O'Connor. Now, have you any more questions for this so-called character witness?
None, my lord.
Mr. Johns, you say the accused tends to over-enthusiasm, and we've also heard of his tendency to cross swords with the CID and the housing people.
Yes.
The impression gained is one of, well, rather naive, immature, even impulsive approach to the work.
But, as I say, there's nothing that experience won't sort out. You say impulsive, but at the same time he has shown an ability to listen to the client's problems, to care, and that's a very essential quality.
Nevertheless, isn't it true that, due perhaps to this naivety, the accused had tended to clash with you and his other colleagues?
At times,
Oh, he's
perhaps,
admitted
but...
in evidence that he took the Lily White case as a challenge, that he hoped to use it to prove himself to the rest of the department.
Of course, and that was at the back of my mind when I allocated Lily to him.
Ah, yes, Lily. How was it you described her? A tricky customer, a wily character, a Fagin. Someone, in fact, who would disillusion him about his grand theories.
Possibly.
Wasn't that rather a rash decision on your part? Even irresponsible?
Not at all. All right, so he was tending to isolate himself a bit. Reckoned he knew it all, came on a bit cocky, but to suggest that it was irresponsible to give him a challenging case like Lily White, well, it's absurd. Maybe I was creating a make-or-break situation, but the life of the probation service is no picnic. He had to find that out. We cannot afford to carry passengers. If he couldn't cope with a character like hers, then he was wrong for the job, and that was that.
And he couldn't.
I'm sorry?
In the event, Mr. Johns, it appears he couldn't cope.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, this is your usual situation, is it? Your officers usually get accused of handling stolen property, of sleeping with their female clients.
Accused, not proven. And on the word of a woman like this.
You will admit, Mr. Johns, that events have proved it was an unfortunate decision on your part?
Not necessarily.
Are you telling us that a more experienced officer would have found himself in the same situation?
No.
No.
But
Yes?
maybe he did get a bit out of his depth. I'm not here to judge the man.
No, Mr. Johns, you're here to help the jury judge him. No further questions, ma'am.
Mr. Johns, in evidence, Mr. Creswell suggested that your department regarded Miss White as an incurable case. Is that so?
Hardly. It would be very dangerous to adopt such a defeatist attitude towards any client.
Yes, quite so.
There's always the chance that one day she will develop a genuine and hence therapeutic respect for an officer.
Then surely, Mr. Johns, she deserved that chance.
Sir?
And not to be used to break in one of your novices.
Ideally. Of course. Ideally. But since my experienced officers already have excessive caseloads, I thought it better to place her with Creswell, a man who might, in any case, have proved able to work with her, rather than let her deprive other clients of attention with the more experienced officers.
Ah, yes. Thank you. Well, gentlemen, do either of you wish Mr. Johns to stay in court? Very well, then, Mr. Johns, you may go if you wish.
My Lord, I'm glad to say that Mrs. Creswell is now available to give evidence. My Lord, I should point out that this witness was in court during part of the prosecution case, but it wasn't until Miss White and her young colleague Emmanuel Nyopa gave evidence that a specific date, namely May the 13th, was put forward as the day on which the defendant is alleged to have helped bury the stolen goods. So it is only now that we discover that Mrs. Creswell is in a position to give alibi evidence for her husband.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. It's quite right that you should point that out. However, you may call her.
Hello, Lucy Creswell, please.
The case of the Queen against Creswell will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. Within 8 months of his becoming a probation officer, one of Trevor Creswell's clients, Lillian White, was caught in possession of stolen watches and jewellery valued at £870. Today, Creswell himself faces trial by jury, charged with being a party to the crime. In evidence, both Miss White and another witness told how the probation officer had become the former's lover and had duly helped her bury the stolen articles. But yesterday, Creswell denied this, stating that Lillian is a pathological liar, inclined to elaborate fantasies, an assertion later supported by a medical witness. Currently in the witness box is the accused's wife, Ella Creswell, called to confirm his alibi.
Ella Lucy Creswell of 15 Rankin Avenue, Wormsley Park, Fulchester.
I am.
And you are the wife of the accused.
Yes.
Mrs. Creswell, could you please tell the court where you were from about 8:30 on the evening of May the 13th last, please?
That's months ago.
Yes, a Monday.
It's hard to be sure. It's so far back.
Well, please try, Mrs. Creswell.
Probably at home.
At home?
I'm seldom out on a Monday evening. In fact, the social life we get up here, lucky to get out any evening.
I see.
Check my engagements book.
By all means.
No, nothing. Oh, I must have been home.
With your husband?
That I couldn't say. Unlikely, I should think.
Oh?
Well, the amount of evening work he has.
But when he is at home, what do you do, Mrs. Creswell?
I beg your pardon?
Well, I mean, do you, for instance, watch much television?
What else is there?
Well, so perhaps if you could recall the specific programs you watched that evening, it might refresh your memory.
You see, on Monday? That would be World in Action and Panorama. Yes, it's quite true. He often makes the effort to get home for those.
And that particular Monday? Well, I believe World in Action transmitted a programme on adoption.
My Lord, counsel is prompting the witness.
Yes, adoption. Yes, that's right. That American appealing for foster homes for those 4 orphans.
Yes. And can you remember, did you watch that programme with your husband? Yes?
Not that I can remember, no.
Mrs. Creswell, it's very important that you should be quite sure.
Why? Has he said he was home then?
Just answer the question, madam. Was he with you or was he not?
No, sir. He was not.
You are quite sure?
Yes, I'm afraid so. You see, he was at home earlier in the evening, and then he had a crisis call from one of his clients and he had to go out. That woman, there it was.
You're certain it was that evening?
Oh, yes, certain. You see, he'd made a point of getting home especially to watch that adoption thing. And then when she phoned him in the middle of dinner, it was... Well, he was fed up. So was I. In fact, we had a bit of a row about it.
I see. Thank you, Mrs. Creswell.
Mrs. Creswell, it must have been difficult for you, having to move up here from London, uprooting your family, your children.
Certainly wasn't easy.
And then the money. Sudden plunge in income from 6,000 a year down to 2,000.
Yes.
In evidence, your husband told us you were happy about that, were you?
Well, not happy. Well, who would be?
Quite.
I mean, probation people may need the dedication of the clergy, but does that mean they have to be paid like them as well?
Is that how you regard your husband's change to this work? Religious dedication?
Hardly. For one thing, he's an atheist.
Really? He took the oath on the Bible.
Yes, well... I mean, he's not one of your typical do-gooder types.
Not concerned, for instance, to help build a better society?
Is that what he told you?
In effect.
Yes, well, perhaps that's what he likes to believe.
But it's not what you believe.
He has his full share of male ego, you know.
Things are none too happy between you, are they, Mrs. Creswell?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Come now, you've admitted to being fed up over the trivial salary rate. You told us that you have precious little social life up here, and about the only thing you have in common with your husband is the television. With respect, it doesn't sound the happiest of marriages.
All right. But if it's so, it's purely because of this job, I can assure you. The phone going all hours, and defectives and delinquents, or whatever they are, forever pestering him. And not to mention the alcoholics and junkies and wife beaters and so on. And of course, when one of them has a crisis, as they do quite often, it's never in office hours. Oh, no. Midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, please, Mr. Creswell, I'm going to jump. Please, Mr. Creswell,
Yes. Yes, not the easiest work, your husband's.
I know the job's important, but he's supposed to have a marriage as well, not a hello, goodbye thing. He's supposed to have 3 children, but he seems to forget they exist.
Oh, very difficult.
Yes, I'm afraid so.
And not least when it comes to this particular client here, Lillian White.
No.
We've heard that she frequently telephoned your husband at home. And as I recall, you were still in court when she stated that she had had intimate relations with your husband.
Yes.
Yes, in fact, we saw you leave the court when young Emmanuel Nyopa later confirmed this. How do you react to those assertions?
My lord, he's still at it, canvassing opinions.
Did your husband ever tell you he was having an affair with Lillian White?
No, not in so many words, no.
But
Well, but what? Madam?
well, I suspected it.
That is an opinion and as such inadmissible.
Madam, did your husband at any time say or do anything to justify these suspicions?
Not directly, perhaps, but it all added up to that, his whole attitude. He seemed obsessed with getting through to her, achieving empathy or whatever he calls it. I got the impression. I mean, all those evenings they were together, and all that time just talking. Not with a woman like that.
But it was only an impression.
Yes, well,
Yes.
there were other things he said about her.
What other things?
Well, for instance, he knew she'd gone back to crime. But I'm not saying he'd hidden those things for her. Of course he hadn't, of course not. Well, that's just typical of her lies. That's the way she's trying to destroy him.
Now, madam, let us be quite clear about this. You are saying that your husband told you that he knew that Miss White had reverted to criminal activities?
Yes.
That he knew she was in possession of stolen property? He told you this?
Yes. But only the 5 watches in the cesspit, mind you. And when she told him about it, he was very upset. He was furious. Well, after all the effort he'd made to have her repay him like that.
Mrs. Creswell, you do realize the significance of this?
What?
Well, your husband has denied that he had any such prior knowledge of the stolen watches.
Oh, I see.
Now, I'm going to ask you to confirm what you have just told us. And you must remember that you are under solemn oath to tell the truth. Now, we've heard what you said about the tensions in your marriage and equally of your suspicions about your husband's association with this woman.
Yes, sir.
So let me emphasize that this court is no place to work off your resentments or your grievances.
Well, if you're suggesting I'd lie...
One of you, madam, has lied to us. Either you or your husband.
Well, it isn't...
Did your husband tell you that he knew about the stolen watches?
Yes. You see, it was me who phoned the police and told Inspector McGovern.
You were the anonymous informant.
Yes. Oh, I am so sorry. It's just the way she was tricking you, leading you on. I had to put a stop to it somehow. I had to. But if I'd known all this, I'd never...
My lord, the defendant asks through me for an opportunity to give his evidence again. He tells me he's not being completely frank to the court. He now realizes his mistake in not being completely candid. He wishes the jury to have the full and complete picture, and he says his reasons for not telling the whole truth before were out of a misguided desire to conceal what he now realizes was a bad professional mistake in his relationship with Miss White. My lord, I realize that this is a highly exceptional request, but bearing in mind my client is a man of good character and the consequence of a conviction for this offence, I ask that he be given this last opportunity.
Mr. Latimer?
I have no objection, my lord, so long as the accused is aware of the consequences of going back on the evidence he has already given us.
Very well, then. Let him return to the witness box. Remember, you are still under oath.
Yes, sir.
Now, you heard what your wife said. Do you confirm that you knew Miss White was in possession of this stolen property?
Only the 5 watches in the cesspit, my lord, not the jewellery.
Nevertheless, you lied to this court about it.
But not about hiding it, though.
You lied, sir.
Yes. Yes. I did, and I apologize, my lord. It was exceedingly stupid. But if I could be allowed to explain...
In a moment. But first about this alibi claim of yours. Mrs. Creswell contradicted you about that also.
Yes, sir.
Was that, too, a deliberate lie?
I'm afraid so.
Why? Did you hope that she, too, would stand in the witness box and commit perjury? Tell us that you had been with her that evening?
I suppose so.
Fortunately for us, she is an honest woman. Let us hear you, then.
Well, you see... obviously it's all tied up with the state I got into over her case. Yes, of course I was naive, arrogant even in the way I tried to deal with Lily. Anyway, that Monday evening, the 13th, she rang my home, as Ella said, and she sounded in a terrible state. And when I arrived at her place, she came on with the full histrionics of how this young, poor, desperate youngster had turned up and talked her into hiding these stolen watches for him. Well, of course, I read her the riot act. I told her she'd got to get rid of the wretched things at all costs.
You did not tell her that she had to go to the police?
No, sir. To insist on that, or to even threaten her with it, would have meant destroying the whole relationship.
Questionable priorities for an officer of the court.
Yes, sir. I did tell her, however, that I'd have to go to my chief, to Mr. Johns. But I had to show that someone cared, that someone was prepared to take her side. In fact, I may have gone to Mr. Johns, but for the business of the SER, the Social Inquiry Report on Jimmy Blake. Lily was hell-bent on my recommending that lad for a supervision order. In fact, she even threatened me.
Threatened you?
She said that if I refused to help Jimmy, she would go to the police and tell them I'd buried the watches for her in the cesspit. I refused, of course. What else? But after that, things went from bad to worse.
In what way?
Oh, she kept on ringing me up and threatening me, calling me all sorts of names. In fact, the evening my wife telephoned the police was particularly bad. We'd arranged to go out to a dinner engagement that evening, and I'd got home especially early. And then Lily rang up, threatening suicide and, oh, God knows what else. Anyway, we had a flaming row about it, and I stormed out and drove over to Lily's for yet another row about Jimmy Blake. And within an hour, the police were around with their warrant. Now, as I say, she'd already threatened me, and when the law arrived, she assumed that I'd jumped the gun and informed on her. And in her anger, she retaliated the only way she could by claiming that I'd helped her bury the stuff. Hell knows no fury like a woman scorned.
Mr. O'Connor?
And had you scorned her, Mr. Creswell?
In a sense, yes. Firstly over Jimmy Blake, and then she supposed by my informing on her, yes.
But not scorned in love?
Oh, no, definitely not. As I've said, that was just sheer fantasy.
You had never had intimate relations with her?
No. All right, I may have tried very hard to make contact with her to show that I cared, but that would have been, ridiculous.
Nor, although you knew of these hidden watches, nor had you assisted Miss White in concealing them?
Definitely not.
Nor had you any knowledge whatsoever of this stolen jewellery?
None whatsoever.
Is there anything further you wish to tell the jury?
Only that I'm sorry I lied. I am guilty of professional misconduct. But naturally, because I care about doing this job, I was anxious to try and conceal it. But I repeat, I am not guilty as charged.
Thank you.
Mr. Lotterby, you wish to re-examine?
I certainly do, my lord. Well, Mr. Creswell, I'm sure these confessions and soul-bearing have all been most impressive.
They happen to be true.
I wonder. Nearer the truth, perhaps, but still not the whole truth.
It is.
You've lied to this court, sir, consistently.
No.
You've lied to us about knowing of the watches,
Yes.
correct? You lied to us about your alibi.
Yes,
And
but-
then thirdly, in your evidence regarding your marriage.
What about it?
You told us there was no marital conflict.
Oh, I was...
Yes, Mr. Creswell?
I was denying the sort of extremes which could have driven me to have been unfaithful.
You still deny you were unfaithful,
Yes.
do you? Then I suggest you are still lying to this court.
No.
Your wife telephoned the police that night in an
No.
extreme state of jealousy, did you not?
Well,
You did know it was she who had made that phone call, didn't you?
No.
Oh, Mr. Creswell, you told her about the watches in the cesspit. You'd had a flaming row with her over Miss White that very evening. And then you heard from Detective Inspector McGovern that the mysterious informant was a woman. Of course you knew it was your wife. Who else?
Well, I may have suspected that it was Ella, but so what?
Simply this, sir, that you have sought consistently to mislead this court with downright lies. And now in your latest version with half-truths. Yes, you knew of the watches, but you did not hide them.
That is right!
I think not, sir. You found yourself trapped by your wife's evidence, cornered into confessing some of the truth, but still only a half version.
No.
You saw the stolen jewellery in Miss White's possession, and in a moment of panic, you helped her hide it.
No, she told me about the watches, and that was all.
Well, fortunately, the jury can decide for themselves whether that is yet another of your lies. No further questions, my lord.
Well, you may return to the dock. Mr. O'Connor?
My lord, that concludes the case for the defence.
Thank you. Mr. Lotterby, you wish to address the jury?
My lord. Members of the jury, the key to this man's guilt is vanity. Clearly, his crime was the result of a consuming urge to achieve, a need to prove himself, which became focused particularly on Lillian White, the incurable aftercare client. Yes, he would accept her claims of police persecution, the Gestapo, as he called them. Yes, he would condone her return to crime. Yes, he would even have intimate relations with her, anything just so that he could win her confidence and show that he could succeed where others had failed. Vanity, members of the jury. Or, as his wife called it, male ego. Members of the jury, you have heard from 2 witnesses who actually saw Trevor Creswell hide the stolen jewellery. 2 witnesses who have absolutely nothing to gain from lying. Indeed, there is only one person in this case who has anything to gain from lying, members of the jury, Trevor Creswell. And it will not have escaped your notice that he has shown himself to be an inveterate liar. 3 times, members of the jury, he lied to you on oath. I submit that you have no alternative on the facts as they have been presented to you, but to find Trevor Creswell guilty as charged.
Mr. O'Connor?
My learned friend has suggested that Miss White had nothing to gain from lying. But this is to dismiss the whole devious complexity of her character. Miss White was presented with a keen and inexperienced social worker whom she could compromise and manipulate. After an initial show of hostility towards him, she resorted to pleas for sympathy over the oppressive police. And finally, to the trap of confidentiality when she confessed to the minor offence of harbouring the watches. Everything as planned. Until she attempted the manipulation over his report on Jimmy Blake, Creswell defied her, and her bitterness was at a peak when the police arrived with their warrant. What more inevitable response than for her to turn with vengeance and falsely accuse her probation officer that he was a party to her offence? The accused was a victim, yes, not of vanity so much as of his profession, a job where essentially sensitive and dedicated men and women are exposed to the wiles of vengeful, emotionally disturbed offenders like this woman here. Do not let his confession over the 5 watches confuse you. He is innocent as charged. It is your duty to acknowledge that and pronounce him not guilty.
Now, members of the jury, the accused is charged that he did dishonestly assist in the disposal of certain stolen goods, namely 5 watches and certain articles of jewellery, for the benefit of some other person, namely Lillian White. Now, in this unusual case, I think I may properly shorten the issue for you to decide if you ask yourselves 3 questions. 1. Was the accused's conduct dishonest? And dishonesty is a question of fact for you to decide, applying your own moral standards of what is right or wrong. 2. Did the accused actually assist in the disposal of these stolen goods? And this requires some positive act by him. 3. If you find that he did in fact bury or hide the watches or the jewellery or both, did he do so with the intention of benefiting Miss White? Now, if the answer to any of these 3 questions is no, then you should acquit the accused. If your answer to all 3 is yes, then you should find him guilty as charged. Or, if you think he assisted in disposing of part only of the property, then you may return a verdict finding him guilty in relation to that part. Now, that is solely for you to decide. So now, members of the jury, I shall ask you to retire and consider your verdict. And in doing so, I must remind you that unless you are satisfied of the accused's guilt beyond reasonable doubt, then you should acquit. Thank you.
All stand. Members of the jury, will your foreman please stand? Just answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict on which you're all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the prisoner, Trevor Martin Creswell, guilty or not guilty on the charge of handling stolen property?
Not guilty.
I am obliged to order that the records of these proceedings be passed to the Director of Public Prosecution to consider whether a further charge should be brought against you. Let him be discharged.
All stand.
He had me duck, sure as I stand here.
Next week, you can join another jury when our cameras return to watch a leading case in the Crown Court.